Your life is being run by a child. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a part of you making decisions that has nothing to do with your adult intelligence or experience. It's the part that felt that surge of panic when your text went unanswered for 3 hours. The part that heard one critical comment and spent the rest of the day convinced you're about to be fired. The part that sees your partner talking to someone attractive and immediately writes the story of how you're not enough, how everyone eventually leaves. You know that feeling when someone criticizes you and suddenly you're 8 years old again, small and defenseless, feeling like the world just confirmed your worst fear about yourself. That's not immaturity. That's your inner child running the show while your adult self watches helplessly from the sidelines. Most people think childhood ends, that once you hit a certain age, pay your own bills, maybe have kids of your own, you've left that vulnerable little person behind. You haven't. Carl Jung discovered something that changes everything. That child is still inside you, not as a memory, not as some metaphor, as a living, breathing psychological force that's making decisions, choosing your relationships, and sabotaging your life in ways you can't even see. And here's the part that'll keep you up tonight. Every time you wonder why you keep ending up in the same painful situations, why you can't break certain patterns, why you feel exhausted pretending to have it all together, that's your inner child screaming to be heard through the only language it knows: chaos, repetition, pain. Jung called this the archetypal child, and understanding it isn't just interesting psychology. It's the difference between spending your entire life reacting to invisible wounds and finally being free. For Jung, archetypes aren't abstract ideas you study and forget. They're living structures in your psyche that shape everything: how you love, what you fear, why you react the way you do when you're triggered. And the inner child, it's one of the most powerful forces in your unconscious mind. This isn't about nostalgia. This is about right now. The way you responded to your partner this morning. The reason you can't say no, even when you're drowning. Why you feel like you're performing your own life instead of living it. Your inner child is active, present, influential. It carries both your deepest creativity and your oldest wounds, and most people never even know it's there. Here's what Jung understood that most people miss. Your inner child doesn't just influence your emotions. It controls your entire perception of reality. When it decides someone's behavior means rejection, that becomes your truth, whether it's actually true or not. The problem isn't the situation, it's the child's interpretation of it, and that interpretation drags your adult self along for the ride, kicking and screaming. Think about your last disproportionate reaction. Someone questioned your work and you spent 3 days convinced you're a fraud. Your friend made plans without you, and suddenly you're certain you're going to end up alone. That's not rational thought. That's a child inside you who learned that love is conditional, that your worth has to be earned, that being vulnerable means getting hurt. And that child, it's still trying to protect you using strategies that made sense when you were 7 but are destroying your life at 37. Jung observed something devastating in his clinical work. Most adult suffering comes from repressing this inner child. We don't look at it. We don't care for it. We learn to hide it behind masks of competence and control. But we're not fine. We're drowning in anxiety we can't explain, repeating relationship patterns that gut us, feeling empty no matter what we achieve. The child doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It just finds other ways to make itself known. It's there when you over-explain yourself to people who didn't ask, when you apologize for existing, when you check your phone waiting for validation from someone who's already shown you they don't care. If this is landing, if you're feeling that uncomfortable recognition, subscribe now. What comes next will show you how to stop being controlled by this. Jung didn't just identify the inner child as one thing. He realized it takes different forms, each with its own way of running your life. And if you're honest, you'll recognize yourself in at least one of these. The wounded child is the one carrying your trauma, the abandonment, the rejection, the moments when you needed someone and nobody came. This is the child who learned that expressing needs was dangerous, that asking for attention meant humiliation, that trusting people led to pain. You know this child is in control when you can't let people get close, when you're constantly scanning for signs someone's about to leave, when criticism feels like annihilation, like proof that you're fundamentally defective. This is the child that makes you test people. You push them away to see if they'll come back. You create problems because waiting for disaster is more unbearable than just making it happen yourself. And here's what makes the wounded child so powerful. It doesn't want to be healed. It wants to be right. It would rather prove that people always leave than risk being wrong and getting hurt again. So it manufactures the very outcomes it fears most, then points and says, "See? I told you." This wounded child makes you pick partners who are emotionally unavailable because that's what feels like home. You sabotage good relationships because someone being consistently kind feels wrong. You achieve success but can't feel it because nothing external can fill the hole where someone should have told you that you mattered just for existing. The eternal child is different. It doesn't replay wounds. It refuses to feel them at all. And the irony is brutal. It's not actually free. It's the most imprisoned of all three. Every time it quits, moves, reinvents itself, it's running from the same feeling. And that feeling always catches up. Always. This is the part that won't grow up, not because it's lazy, but because growing up meant losing the magic, accepting that life is just responsibility and disappointment. This child lives in perpetual escape. It can't commit to relationships or careers. It quits jobs right before the promotion, ends relationships right when they start getting real, moves cities, changes friend groups, reinvents itself because staying still long enough to be truly known feels like death. The eternal child isn't avoiding adulthood. It's avoiding grief. The grief of realizing that no amount of novelty will fill the void. That running doesn't make you free, it just makes you tired. That somewhere along the way, it traded depth for distraction and called it living. And here's the part that cuts deepest. This child knows it's trapped. Somewhere underneath all the movement and excitement, it knows. It just doesn't know how to stop. Jung saw this as vital energy that never found a mature place to land. That creativity, that hunger for meaning, it's not wrong. It's just been twisted into avoidance because nobody taught you that you could be both grounded and free. The divine child is your deepest potential. Your creativity, your intuition, your capacity to see life as sacred. It's the part of you that still believes in mystery, that feels wonder, that knows there's more to existence than just grinding through days. This is the child Jung believed we're all trying to reach. The one that holds your true purpose, your authentic self, your capacity for joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. It's the whole reason you're doing any of this work. But here's the tragedy. This child is usually suffocated by the pain of the other two. When you're busy managing wounds and escaping responsibilities, there's no space for the part of you that could actually create something beautiful. The divine child withdraws, and you're left feeling disconnected from any sense of purpose. Most of us live under the control of the wounded child. We're not creating lives, we're managing damage. We're reacting to old pain in every new situation. We're seeking in romantic partners what we needed from parents, and we wonder why we're so tired, why nothing feels right, why we have everything we're supposed to want and still feel like something's missing. From the time you're young, you learn which parts of you are acceptable and which need to be hidden. Crying is weak, needing people is shameful, being sensitive is a flaw. So you adapt, you build masks. There's the mask of the responsible one who takes care of everyone else but never asks for help, because you learned you only matter when you're useful. You're the one everyone calls in a crisis. And underneath, you're drowning. There's the mask of the strong one who doesn't need anyone, who solves everything alone because you had to grow up too quickly. You built walls and called them boundaries. You isolated yourself and called it independence. There's the mask of the successful one who achieves and performs, trying desperately to prove your worth. Every accomplishment is an attempt to finally be enough. But the goalpost keeps moving because the problem was never your performance, it was that you needed to be loved for existing, not excelling. And there's the mask of the easygoing one who never rocks the boat, never has opinions, never makes anyone uncomfortable. You learned that having preferences meant conflict, that asserting yourself meant rejection. So you became a chameleon, shape-shifting to fit whatever space you're in, until one day you realize you have no idea who you actually are. Each mask is a costume your inner child put on to survive, and you forgot you were wearing it. The mask doesn't just hide you from others, it hides you from yourself. You've been performing so long, you can't tell where the act ends and you begin. The scariest question isn't, will they accept the real me? It's, is there still a real me left to find? And sometimes the answer feels like no. Sometimes you look inside and there's just more performance, more adaptation, more masks under masks. That's when the panic sets in. These masks kept you safe when being yourself was too dangerous. The problem is you're not in danger anymore, but you're still wearing them, and they're suffocating you. Jung understood something most people miss about the persona. It's not that wearing masks is wrong. It's that most people forget they're wearing one. The mask becomes the face. The performance becomes the identity. And the real self, the one underneath, starts to feel like a stranger. Or worse, like it never existed at all. Carl Jung saw this clearly. We spend the first half of our lives building a persona designed to avoid rejection, and we spend the second half either breaking it down to find out who we actually are, or dying inside while maintaining the illusion. Repression doesn't eliminate pain, it moves it. What you try to ignore, your unconscious stores. And it comes out anyway in anxiety you can't explain, addictions you can't stop, relationships that repeat the same patterns. The inner child doesn't disappear just because you've gotten good at hiding it. It waits. And while it waits, it sabotages. Not out of malice, but because sabotage is the only language it has left. You're in a good relationship, and you pick a fight. You're about to succeed, and you self-destruct. You finally have what you wanted and you can't enjoy it. That's your inner child trying desperately to communicate through the only channel still open. You can't think your way out of this. You can't rationalize childhood wounds. You can't read enough or meditate enough to make this child stop running your life from the shadows. There's only one thing that works. And it's the thing most people never do. Jung's answer to all of this is both simple and revolutionary. You need to develop what he called the internal paternal ego. You need to become, for yourself, the parent you needed when you were small. This isn't about blaming your actual parents. They did what they could with what they had. This is about recognizing that waiting for someone else to come save you, to finally see you, that wait will kill you. Because it's never coming. Not the way you need it to. The only person who can truly care for your inner child is you. The adult you, right now. Emotional maturity isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's developing the capacity to care for yourself from within. To notice when the wounded child is in control, and instead of reacting blindly, to establish an internal dialogue. Imagine this. Someone criticizes you and you feel that old familiar panic rising. Your chest tightens. Your mind races through every mistake you've ever made, building a case that you're incompetent, that you've been fooling everyone. But instead of spiraling, you pause, you take a breath. You recognize it's not the adult being criticized, it's the child inside you who learned that criticism meant you were fundamentally wrong. And you say to that child internally, I see you. I know this hurts. I remember when being criticized felt like the end of the world. But you're safe now. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We can handle this together. That simple act, that moment of internal presence, changes everything. You move from being controlled by pain to being able to hold it. The criticism still stings, but it doesn't destroy you. This internal dialogue becomes a practice. When you feel abandonment because someone took too long to text back, I know you're scared. I know waiting feels like proof that nobody cares, but we don't know what's happening on the other side. We're okay right now. Let's wait and see. When you want to quit something because it's getting hard, I know you want to run. Running has kept us safe before. But what if this time we stay? What if we see what happens when we don't give up just because it's uncomfortable? This isn't about denying your feelings. It's creating an internal relationship where the wounded part of you finally has someone who listens, who validates, who doesn't abandon it. Real psychological growth isn't repressing pain. It's listening to it. Not pretending to be strong, but building actual strength, the kind that comes from being able to sit with your own vulnerability without betraying yourself. Most people think time heals wounds. It doesn't. Time just buries them deeper until they run your entire life from underground. What heals wounds is reparenting, consciously becoming the adult you needed when you were young. This starts with listening, not the intellectual listening where you try to fix. deep listening, emotional listening, the kind that just lets pain exist. Your inner child doesn't want solutions. It wants to be seen. It wants to know its pain makes sense, that its fear isn't crazy, that its need for love wasn't wrong. When you feel yourself reacting disproportionately, pause. Get curious instead of critical. Ask yourself, how old do I feel right now? What does this remind me of? Usually you'll find you don't feel your actual age. You feel 7, or 12, or 15, and that younger version of you is the one reacting. Let's say your partner forgets to do something they promised. Your immediate reaction is rage or shutdown. You feel disrespected, invisible. Before you react, you pause. You notice you feel about 10 years old, the age when your parents consistently forgot your school events, when you learned that you didn't matter enough to remember. Instead of attacking your partner, or withdrawing, you say to your inner child, I know this feels like proof that we don't matter. But this is different. This person isn't our parent. They forgot one thing. We can talk to them about it. We can ask for what we need without it meaning we're unlovable. Then you calmly tell your partner, when you forgot, it brought up old feelings for me. I need you to know this matters to me. You've handled it like an adult while honoring the child's pain. That's reparenting in action. Reparenting also involves establishing internal boundaries. Learning to say no to the impulses that the wounded child drives. No, we're not texting that person who treats us badly. No, we're not abandoning this good thing just because it's starting to feel real. No, we're not apologizing for setting a boundary just because someone's upset. Each time you make these choices, you're teaching your inner child something revolutionary, that it's safe to have needs, that people being upset doesn't mean you're bad, that you don't have to earn your right to take up space. It means developing the capacity to self-soothe, to offer yourself presence instead of reaching for the numbing behaviors you've always used, the scrolling, the drinking, the compulsive working. Self-soothing looks like putting your hand on your chest when anxiety spikes. Saying out loud, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now and that's okay. This will pass. Sitting with discomfort before making a decision you'll regret. These are small acts, but they send a powerful message. I'm here now. You're not alone anymore. I've got you. What makes reparenting so powerful is this. You're not just healing old wounds. You're rewriting the foundational story of your life. The one that said you were too much or not enough, that your needs were burdensome, that love had to be earned. You're replacing that story with a new one. One where you're inherently worthy. One where you belong to yourself first. Over time, something shifts. The wounded child stops screaming because it's finally being heard. Those disproportionate reactions fade. Relationships change because you're no longer trying to fill a bottomless void through another person. The energy that was trapped in defense and repetition starts to flow again, and with it comes creativity, genuine joy, a real desire to be alive. You start making choices based on what you actually want, not what you think will keep you safe. Healing isn't erasing the past, it's not becoming someone who never hurts. It's creating a present where old pain finally finds acceptance instead of rejection. Something profound happens when the inner child is finally heard and cared for. The pain that showed up as chronic anxiety, destructive relationships, and emptiness begins to dissolve. And what emerges isn't just relief, it's power. Not the aggressive, performative kind. A quiet strength that comes from no longer being at war with yourself. When the child is recognized as an essential part of who you are, not a problem to fix, it stops acting from the shadows. Because now it knows, it's not alone. There's an adult there, a present, protective adult who has chosen not to repeat the abandonment. And something almost miraculous happens. Pain gives way to creativity. Lack makes room for real connection. Anxiety transforms into presence. When the inner child feels safe, it reveals its highest face, the divine child. The one who isn't afraid to feel, to create, to be enchanted by existence itself. Life starts to feel different. You wake up and you're not immediately bracing for impact. You can receive love without waiting for the betrayal. Someone's upset with you, and you can hold space for it without collapsing. You discover you can be both vulnerable and strong, both soft and boundaried, both open to connection and capable of protecting yourself. Jung said the child is a symbol of wholeness. When it's integrated, You stop living fragmented, split between who you show the world and who suffers in silence. You stop needing masks to deserve love. You stop shrinking yourself to be accepted. You become the home you've been seeking in other people. And once you do that, everything changes. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally become whole. Freedom doesn't come when you achieve enough or fix yourself enough. It comes when you stop fighting against the most vulnerable part of yourself and learn to hold it with the tenderness it's always deserved. The turning point doesn't come from outside. It comes from the radical act of looking inward with courage and saying, "I see you. I'm here for you. I will not abandon you anymore." Jung believed that most people never do this work. They spend their entire lives reacting to childhood pain they don't even know is there, wondering why nothing ever feels quite right. But you're here. You've watched this far, which means some part of you is ready to stop running, ready to turn around and face the small, sensitive person inside who's been waiting for you to come back, ready to offer yourself what you've been desperately seeking from everyone else. And when you do, when you finally extend that hand inward, everything changes. Not overnight, not without effort, but truly, deeply, permanently. You stop being a prisoner of patterns you didn't choose. You start creating a life that's actually yours. And for the first time, maybe ever, you feel whole. Wholeness doesn't mean you stop feeling pain. It means you stop being afraid of it. You stop needing to be fixed or perfect or healed in order to deserve your own love. The goal was never to become someone different. It was always to come home to who you've been all along. And that person? They've been waiting for you this whole time. Not in the future. Not after you've done enough work or achieved enough healing. Right now, in this moment, in every moment you've ever lived. The child you're looking for isn't lost. They're right here. They've always been right here. You just finally learned how to see them. And the moment you do, you realize something that changes everything. You were never broken. You were just alone. And now you're not. Here's what I need to know. When did you first realize your inner child was running your life? What pattern finally made you see it? Drop it in the comments. Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to finally start their own healing.